Well, will you look at that, it's been 4 months since I last uploaded a video, and I haven't really done that much, aside from the fact that I went off and got married to my best friend, so that was amazing. And in the time since, just been taking it easy really, you know, sort of sitting back, relaxing, and I guess with regards to this channel, trying to make a schedule that actually works with regards to having a decent sort of work-life balance. Even though I'm seriously late to the party at this point, the only video that I could think of how I really wanted to kick things off for this year would be a roundup for my favourite films of last year. And as we all know, 2021 was a bit of a weird year for films. I mean, let's face it, half the year cinemas weren't even open. So yeah, it was a bit of a strange time, but there were some really, really good movies that came out last year. And I've always just wanted to do a yearly roundup of films, so now felt like as good a time as any, even if I am terribly, terribly late. Before we get stuck in, I just want to say a big thank you to all of my existing subscribers. If you haven't subscribed or you're new to this channel, why not hit that button now? It will absolutely make my day if you do, particularly as I have big plans for this channel going over into the new year, I suppose, so any support is going to be much appreciated. So, took me a while to whittle down this list, but here we go, starting with number 5, my favourite films of 2021. With the amount of times this film got delayed, it was starting to feel like Daniel Craig's final outing as Bond was just never going to see the light of day, but it did finally come to cinemas, and oh my goodness, was it worth the wait. Because of the way Bond gets unceremoniously replaced every couple of years, his character, at least in film, has never really had the proper send-off that you would expect for a character of his caliber, but that's exactly what we've got with No Time to Die. The film explores what it means for a character like Bond to find closure, particularly after he's left so many enemies and so much destruction in his wake, and whether or not that's even possible at this point. We get to tap into what Bond is really thinking, and the same can be said for Daniel Craig's co-stars, who flesh out their characters so well that it feels like we're finally getting a look into the Bond universe in a way that really we just haven't seen before. And remember, this is coming from someone who traditionally isn't a fan of Bond, so honestly, believe me when I say it is absolutely worth a watch.
What does sueñito mean?
Sueñito? It means little dream.
Just as cinemas began to open up again in the UK, one of the first films to hit theatres was In the Heights, but because it came out around that time, it felt like a lot of people just missed it completely. This is the cinematic adaptation of Lin-Manuel Miranda's first musical, the same man who was behind Hamilton. While the events of Hamilton, of course, took place years before Lin-Manuel was ever born, In the Heights instead is actually based upon his experience growing up in New York's Washington Heights and the culture that is embedded there via the Dominican Republic. Just like all of Lin-Manuel's work, the songs here are punchy and will really get stuck in your head. But the difference here is that the film really utilizes the cinematic toolset to bring those songs to life with some amazing spectacle shots, so many just impressively choreographed major set pieces that really will have you on the edge of your seat the entire time. While In the Heights was unfortunately overlooked by a lot of people, it's now available on demand and to rent, so if you did miss it the first time around, then it's easier than ever to dive in and see why this was one of the biggest overlooked gems of 2021.
The day you left for Marseille, I drove you to the airport. I went to the gift shop and I saw this necklace. It was gold, said Stillwater on it.
Here's another film that was largely overlooked but is still no less worthy of your attention. Stillwater sees Matt Damon playing an estranged father who leaves his comfort zone in Oklahoma, travels all the way to the south of France, all with the intent of exonerating his daughter, who he feels has been wrongly accused for the death of her university roommate. It's rare that we get to see a Hollywood film in a European setting, but that's exactly what makes it so interesting, as we get to see this fish out of water try and navigate the underworld of Marseille and really try to discover what happened in the events that led up to his daughter's arrest. It also means we get to see some incredible French talent play off of Damon's Hollywood style, with Camille Cotin playing a standout role as a young mother who decides to help Damon's character in his time of need. Much like the films of David Fincher, Stillwater takes its time in building its story and finally getting to the truth at the end of it all, but because of that, the world that it presents feels so well realised that by the time the credits roll, you genuinely feel a pang of sadness for the fact that you're not going to see these characters again.
Ever since I got bit by that spider, I've only had 1 week where my life has felt normal. That was when you found out.
No Way Home was always guaranteed to have a spot on this list, but I had some lofty expectations for this film going into it as a massive MCU fan, and it still managed to surpass all of them. No Way Home is definitely the most dramatic MCU film that I think we've seen before, as Peter Parker tries to navigate this new world where his identity has been revealed and he is now a social pariah due to a misunderstanding at the end of the last film. As we all knew from the trailers, however, the film brings back some classic Spidey villains from the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield eras, and while it's practically been spoiled for everyone up until this point, there are also a few more twists and turns along the way. What No Way Home does really well, however, is despite all of the moving parts that it has, it still maintains its focus on being a more personal story about Peter Parker and his friends. All Peter wants is for his friends to lead a normal life and for their prospects to be unimpeded by their friendship with him. And that theme carries throughout the entire film so that no matter how many moving parts there are, it never loses sight of that core piece of narrative. And that's one heck of an achievement for a blockbuster film. Whenever Hollywood decides to remake an undeniable classic, I think audiences brace for impact. But this is one of those rare exceptions where all of the parts just came together, and West Side Story is genuinely a masterpiece achievement of cinema. In full disclosure, I haven't seen the original film adaptation of West Side Story, but from what I've read, this new version spends far more time in fleshing out the backstories of several characters so that you understand their motivations a lot better. And because of that, there isn't a single dud performance in the entire of the film's ensemble cast. With the exception of Ansel Elgort, most of the film's ensemble cast are relative newcomers, but any one of them could easily carve out an esteemed career after this film. And that's just in relation to their acting chops. When you also factor in the singing and dancing, it's really hard not to be super impressed by everything that's happening here. In the Heights might have more going for it from a visual perspective, but West Side Story is such a triumph on every other measure that it's easily my favourite film of 2021. Thank you so much for watching. It took me a little bit longer than usual to put this video together, so I appreciate you sticking with it all the way until the end. And if you feel as though I missed out any of your favourite films, then please let me know in the comments below. And if you want to show your support, why not hit the like button down below. Thank you.